Hey guys, welcome back to the Diet Doc Life Mastery Podcast. I'm Joe Klemczewski here with Dr. Kori Propst. We're going to continue bifurcating our topic of kind of not dieting, but trying to look like you diet or make some improvements. So it's kind of the anti-diet series. But every time we've talked about it, we have split it into some different categories. This time is going to be more of the motivational mastery series because we're going to talk about what's happening in your head and why. Kori, I will tell you this, it's so true that as soon as I say I'm going to start a diet or I'm going to make this change or I have this new goal, it is instantly way harder because now I can't stop thinking about it. So what's happening to me?
Yeah. Well, that is totally normal. That's called the ironic process theory. So the moment we say, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to think about this, that's the very thing that we can't stop thinking about and become preoccupied about, right?
Right.
Now, in a food situation, I really, I have a lot of clients who come to me and they'll say, I can't stop thinking about food. And I like to look at this from a number of different perspectives. I'm completely I'm preoccupied right now, Joe, on what you said in the very beginning of this podcast, which was, I want to look like I'm dieting. I'm totally stuck on that.
Well, we want all of the results, but it's just so hard to add that stress to our lives.
There's just something very messed up about that thought in and of itself. Like, why do we need to change our bodies to look a certain way? And you had said yesterday in the podcast, well, we do it, for sex and procreation. Well, perhaps to an extent to look good for the, a partner. But there's something much more insidious here. And seriously, it goes right along with racism and sexism, and there's weightism and fat phobia. And I would love to get into all of those things. But okay, Kori, back on topic here. I can't.
Well, let me entertain your diversion for just a second since I started it. If you want to put a quantifiable label on it, 95% or so of all of our thoughts are subconscious. So racism is not, oh my gosh, I hate that group of people. It's an evolutionary adaptation for safety. That person, that thing is different from me. That may be a threat. So when I said, sex signaling and mate selection is an evolutionary driving force, we don't sit around saying, gosh, I think I need to lose an inch on my waist because I want to have sex tomorrow. That's not a conscious thought, but we're constantly comparing ourselves to our peers. And that is something that we will never, ever escape unless we start mapping our brains a little bit further out into the neocortex and start making executive decisions about those evolutionary impulses.
Yes, we need that level of awareness so that we don't go down that low road. There is blatant racism, blatant sexism, blatant weightism, blatant fat phobia. All of that is not covert, overt. We see it in the world, and that's messed up. But so, okay, I can't stop thinking about food. The first thing I go to, Joe, is, okay, well, what's the tone and energy around that thought? Because I've thought, I can't stop thinking about food in a very sort of curious, spacious, interested way. As I get interested in sort of trying new things, maybe I'm looking at different recipes. And bear in mind, I am not focused on weight loss. I am not focused on trying to change my body. I am interested in seeing how different foods feel, how different flavors taste, So there's a different tone to it. A lot of times clients will say, Kori, I can't stop thinking about food. The tone is one of control. It's almost angry, and there's anxiety in it. Okay, that's really, really different. It's worried and it's constricted, like something isn't right here. I can't stop thinking about food. So that's an important piece of it, to be asking yourself. If the thought is there, I can't stop thinking about food, and just the observation that food has become this all-consuming thing in your mind. Is it spacious and curious and interested, or is it worried and uncomfortable and constricted and controlling? Most often, the one that I hear, it's filled with dread. It's this fatigued sort of feeling. It's frustrated. Thinking about food, Joe, think about food all the time isn't necessarily healthy. There are certain times when it happens, though. When we're really hungry. It's supposed to happen because biologically our bodies are trying to protect us from doing something harmful, to protect us from famine and starvation, right? So if those thoughts are there, we need to have some level of awareness to ask ourselves, is what I am doing, is the position that I'm putting myself in right now, a diet, some sort of restriction, some sort of structure, is this in my best interest? If I'm thinking about food all the time, probably not. It's probably not in your best interest. And so to begin asking, like, first, on a foundational level, sort of what are the beliefs underneath where these thoughts are coming from? Am I believing that I need to change my body in some way, change my weight in some way in order to be worthy, to be acceptable, to be lovable? And a lot of times, Joe, when I get down into the nitty-gritty with my clients, they haven't asked themselves those questions. But when they do, they're like, I don't even know what it would be like to eat in a manner that isn't focused on a diet, isn't focused on some sort of external structure that someone has said, this is the way to do it. Because I don't know my own hunger cues. And that may not even be related to my stomach growling. It could be I get irritable, I get just really tired and fatigued. So it becomes this process of really learning how to trust ourselves. And the I can't stop thinking about food can be the impetus to move into that sort of discovery process. Now, the other thing to consider is that sometimes food, and a lot of times with the clients that I have worked with, and I know that you have dealt with this a lot as well, because we're getting individuals coming to us, Joe, who they've weight cycled for years, decades. They've been on 20 different diets, started a lot of times when they were really young. But sometimes food is a go-to sort of soothing device. All right. And I want to add, because this is important, that's not necessarily a bad thing. We've talked a lot about emotional eating and how emotional eating isn't bad. It's not a bad thing. We're emotional creatures. We're going to eat when we're experiencing emotion. It can become dysfunctional when we don't necessarily have the tools, other skills, other resources, and other strategies to meet our deepest, most basic psychological needs. But this is important to consider. We grew up, when we were born, food was a comfort. When we were hungry and uncomfortable, we would cry, and then what would we get? We get the breast or a bottle. And with the breast or the bottle, typically, there would be warmth, connection, love, closeness, comfort. So for us to, because I hear this a lot, get angry at ourselves and attribute this drive or this desire for food when we're feeling uncomfortable to there being something wrong with us inside, like I just need more self-control, that's backwards. Because again, if we go back from an evolutionary biological perspective, this is how we grew up and matured. Comfort it came in the form of food, and food was attached to love and connection and warmth and caring. But so it's not a bad thing. It's actually very, very functional. And if we're not getting our needs met, and I would encourage everyone to go back to a video that I recorded, I think, Joe, it was in maybe 2012, called Binge Eating and Our Basic Needs. And that's on our YouTube channel, guys, and you can find it on the website, thedietdoc.com. But if we're not getting our needs met for autonomy, a sense of choice, and how often is that taken away by a diet, right? If we're not getting our need met for connection and affiliation and a sense of belonging, and how often is that taken away by a diet? Because a lot of times we isolate when we go on a diet. We have to be different than a lot of people, and we eschew like social gatherings and different things because we don't want to be looked at or monitored or, asked questions of. And then competence too. How often do we go on a diet and then instead of when we fail, because remember, about 95 to 98% of people who go on a diet fail, instead of when we fail going to, I'm a failure, I can't do this. I've been on 20 different diets, and each time I have failed. Something is wrong with me that I don't have enough willpower, I don't have enough self-control, I can't stick to the program. Instead of that, maybe we should ask the question, I wonder if it's the program. 20 times and I wasn't able to follow the program. Maybe it's the freaking program. Maybe it's the diet plan. Maybe it's the blueprint that these people are saying is the perfect way to change your body and make it perfect. Oh gosh. So we have those 3 basic needs, Joe. And when those aren't met, a lot of times people, even if they've never dieted before, okay, will move towards something that is going to provide them comfort. That's normal. Now, you throw a diet on top of that does have some level of restriction, okay? The food thoughts are going to come. Now we need to look at the tone and learn how to comfort ourselves in a more skillful, wise way. But if there is that restriction, I think that, biologically and studies have shown this, Joe, what super interesting study, if any of you are interested, the Minnesota starvation experiment. And I'm not going to get into the details of that, but when food was restricted in this experiment, this is what we saw: a preoccupation with food, okay? Rumination, anxiety, some hysteria, depression, severe emotional distress. So if these are all the sorts of things that you are possibly experiencing when you've gone into a diet, when you've decided, like, I'm going to do this really staunch, strict, very restrictive, going to change my body to try to fit in sort of a plan, we need to create a new level of awareness here and start asking questions about what really needs our attention.
All right. Well, let's. You've given me a lot of things to think about that I would love to say we need to tack on at least one more episode to this series, because you you went about 6 lanes over from where my brain was when you went into the psychological needs of connection, primarily. So we'll let that one sink in for everybody, and then we'll wrap this up maybe in the next one with kind of a summary of all of these things on how to have the anti-diet mentality that actually, ironically, makes your diet and food and health life much more successful.
All right, Joe. Yeah, thank you. This is a complex topic, so thanks for letting me dive into it with you.
Oh, it's great. It's great. And for you guys, please make sure that you review the last couple episodes in this if you're catching up. And we will move into this final summary on our next issue or next episode, and we'll catch you then.
Thanks, guys.